Hey everyone, welcome back to the Backmarkers F1 show. I'm so glad you could join me today for the preview of the 70th Anniversary Grand Prix this Sunday in Silverstone. Now before we start, I just wanted to say a quick thank you and appreciation to everybody that watched last weekend's British Grand Prix preview and also all the comments as well. I got a lot of great positive feedback, and remember guys, as always, if you have any suggestions or anything that you maybe like included in these previews, just drop it in the comments below. We always love to hear from you guys, and we always appreciate the feedback. Now, getting into the preview today, a little bit of a different format just because we are doing a doubleheader at the Silverstone circuit. So we're not going to go through all the circuit info like we did last week, and we're just basically going to go through the news heading into this week and also all of the predictions and some fan questions that you guys sent in as well. Now, before we get into the preview, I just wanted to remind everybody that we are sponsored by the GPBox.com. They are a motorsport marketplace that sells and buys F1 merchandise. If you'd like to check them out, the link is in the description of this video, and there's also some promo codes for Backmarkers F1 show subscribers, so check it out. Alright, now let's get into the preview for the 70th Anniversary Grand Prix. Alright, so the F1 news roundup for this week. It's been a bit of a pretty busy week. Obviously, with the triple header, it's going to be very compact, so a lot of things happening, but a lot of things to talk about from last weekend, actually. That are actually still yet to be resolved as I'm recording this, so things might change within the next couple of days, but I'm going off of the news that I have right now. So let's start off with the first news of this week, which is resulting Nico Hülkenberg and Racing Point. Now, Hülkenberg is on standby for this weekend, as Racing Point are awaiting a confirmation on Sergio Perez's COVID situation. So just pulling up the article here. Now, they are trying to determine whether it's a 7-day quarantine or a 10-day mandatory quarantine. Now, he did test positive last Thursday, so even if it was a 7-day quarantine, it doesn't seem likely like he's going to be able to race. So now, of course, one of the problems that I do see with this is that what if Sergio Perez's test is a false positive, for example? We know that the testing protocols for this virus is pretty wildly inaccurate all over the world. So if Perez did test positive, but it is in fact found out to be a false positive test, this will be the second race in a row that he's missed, and who knows, he could miss even more races if the virus is somehow present in future tests. So the problem I have with this in this scenario is that, in my personal opinion, I feel that Perez could possibly race even though he has a positive test. I think protocols could be in place where he could race safely amongst the other drivers. I just really feel for Sergio because this is most likely going to be the second race that he misses, and we know with all the rumors of Vettel joining Racing Point next year and Perez possibly losing his seat, I just think it's really unfair and really unfortunate for Perez to miss this amount of time. And 2 races in such a shortened season is a really big blow to your championship. So fingers crossed they can get it figured out. But at the moment, does not look likely that Perez will be in the Racing Point seat. So it looks like Nico Hülkenberg, once again, will be the man for the job. Moving on then to Pirelli, which was another massive talking point from last weekend's race, of course, with all the tire failures. Now, I chatted with Tyler McDonald as well yesterday. You can check out that recap podcast of the British Grand Prix found in the links and also in our channel. And we talked a lot about this extensively with the tires situation, and they did come to a decision. No changes will be coming to the compound, so we will be going with the C2, C3, and the C4 tires. They will be raising minimum pressures, but no stint limits or anything like that will be implemented. Now, the press release from Pirelli, they have conducted an investigation and have found that the key reason is down to a set of individual race circumstances that led to an extremely long use of the second set of tires. The second safety car period prompted nearly all the teams to anticipate their planned pit stop and to carry out a particularly long final stint around 40 laps, which is more than 3/4 the total race length as one of the most demanding tracks on the calendar. They go on to say that combined with notably increased pace of the 2020 F1 cars, pole position was 1.2 seconds faster compared to 2019, this made the final laps of the British Grand Prix especially tough, as a consequence of the biggest forces ever seen on tires generated by the fastest Formula One cars in history. So, as I mentioned, they go on to say in the end, for the second race at Silverstone this weekend, Pirelli confirms the nominated compounds C2, C3, and C4. Also, the usage prescription will be reviewed, increasing the minimum tire pressures to reduce the stress on the construction. So, it wasn't actually the debris. They found that it was the high-load circuits, as we were predicting and as we kind of surmised in the end. And just the massive downforce that these cars have nowadays and the ridiculous speeds that they can reach, it all just came down to the fact that it was too much load generated on the tires. Now, in the end, when I talk about the race predictions, I will get into what this means in terms of the race, but I think this is good news that they will be keeping the softer compounds. Now, more news on the reserve driver front, or possibly fill-in driver front. Paul di Resta will be on standby at McLaren for this weekend's 70th Anniversary Grand Prix at Silverstone after undergoing a seat fitting for the team on Wednesday. Now, not to panic for any McLaren fans, Lando and Carlos are okay at the time of recording this. They haven't tested positive or anything like that. They are fit to drive. McLaren, they do have an agreement with Mercedes to share its reserves, Stoffel Van Dorn and Esteban Gutierrez, should regular drivers Carlos Sainz Jr. or Lando Norris be ruled out the race weekend. Now, the reason they did this is because with Van Dorn being in Berlin for the Formula E season finale and Gutierrez ineligible to race because he doesn't have enough super license points, McLaren has confirmed that ex-Force India driver di Resta will be nominated reserve for this weekend. So this is just a sort of contingency plan put in place, of course, with what happened last weekend at Racing Point. And Racing Point had the issue of Gutierrez not having enough super license points, Van Dorn not being in the area to be able to race. So McLaren are just covering their bases. Paul di Resta is going to be there anyway for Sky F1. He's still going to be commentating this weekend, but they just put this in place just in case if it were to happen. So Paul di Resta is on the ready, and as soon as I heard this news, I couldn't help but think back to the 2017 Hungarian Grand Prix and Kimi Räikkönen's radio moment following Paul di Resta on track. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go look it up on YouTube. I'm sure it'll bring a smile to your face, as does anything that Kimi says. So And speaking of Kimi Räikkönen's team, Alfa Romeo, they will be having Robert Kubica in the car for free practice 1, replacing Antonio Giovinazzi. Now, of course, Kubica has his massive sponsor Orlen, which is sponsoring Alfa Romeo this season, so part of that whole partnership agreement is having Kubica in the car for a couple of sessions this season. It's actually not a bad idea considering Alfa Romeo seems to be struggling a lot with car setup. Räikkönen is struggling. So I think it might not be a bad idea for Alfa Romeo to throw Kubica in there, get a more experienced driver in there, see if they can make any progress in terms of development in the car. But Kubica will be in for FP1 for Alfa Romeo this Friday. Now, they are making some modifications as well to the track at Silverstone. So this news update comes from Hassie on Twitter, and he says that it seems that they have extended the curb at turn 14 to prevent the drivers going onto the dirt as well. So this turn 14, you guys will probably remember a lot of drivers like Ricciardo, even Hamilton, were kicking up dirt on the entry and exit of this corner, as you can see in this photo. And that's right before the Chapel Straight and the second DRS zone. So it looks like they're going to extend the curb here so that drivers aren't going into the dirt, possibly kicking up debris onto the track and gravel and, making it more slippery. So one modification that they will be making to the track there at turn 14. So pay attention to that as soon as the cars get out on running. Racing Point had their hearing today with the whole protest controversy with Renault and even Ferrari jumping in. This photo was seen in the paddock earlier today, where representatives of Racing Point were leaving the FIA hearing. Mercedes had left the hearing an hour ago at the time this photo was taken. No decision is made as of this recording. It seems like they will be releasing their final conclusions before FP1, maybe even on Thursday during the drivers' press conferences. So keep updated on our Twitter at TBMF1 Show and any other F1 news outlets you follow. You'll probably be hearing about this decision sooner rather than later. And my final F1 news and sort of rumor is one thing I came across when I was scrolling through Twitter the other day, and this comes from at race underscore updates on Instagram, so give them a follow because this photo graphic comes from them. Just talking about horsepower in terms of the power units that are the most powerful this season. And according to motorsport.com, the W11 taps no less than 1,022 horsepower in qualifying mode during the British Grand Prix, which is pretty crazy. Now, if you look at this graphic here, Honda comes in at second at 994, Renault in third at 985, and what most likely we expected, Ferrari dead last at 980 horsepower. Now, that deficit between Ferrari and Mercedes is quite massive, and even between Ferrari and Honda is quite massive. But it also could explain why Mercedes are so far ahead, not just from an aerodynamic chassis perspective, but it seems like they've reinstated their power unit dominance circa 2014 this season in 2020. So very impressive if this is all confirmed to be true. Now, as we finish up the race preview for this Sunday, we're just going to get into some fan questions and my predictions and thoughts on the race this weekend. Now, the first fan question comes in here from Darcy on Twitter. Now, this was in response to a tweet I had put out about Daniel Ricciardo and Verstappen having a successful partnership at Red Bull. Now, he asks, what do you think they will do for next season? Would be interesting to see Max with a teammate who can keep up. Yeah, and Darcy and I had a back and forth on Twitter about what could possibly happen. I personally think Sebastian Vettel would be a good fit at Red Bull, actually, with Max Verstappen. A couple seasons ago, I would have thought it would have been an explosive relationship. It wouldn't have worked out. I think at this stage of Vettel's career, I think Max is also a lot more mature. I also think that they work really well together. They have a great mutual respect for each other. I think it could work out completely. And as Tyler and I talked about in our recap podcast, Red Bull really needs a good second car. They need a Ricciardo-type driver in their car. When you think back to when Ricciardo was at Red Bull, he was able to challenge for pole positions, able to race wheel-to-wheel with Max Verstappen. Maybe not every weekend, but they could rely on Ricciardo to sometimes split the Ferraris or split the Mercedes. And with all due respect to Alex Albon or even Pierre Gasly before there, they are just not at the stage of their career right now where they can do that consistently. I think Albon's a great driver. I think Gasly's a great driver. They have a place in Formula One. They have a future in a bigger team. It's just a very difficult environment to work in. I don't think Red Bull or Christian Horner make it any easier for these younger drivers. And I think that they're so enamored with Max Verstappen, rightfully so. He's an amazing talent, a future world champion if he has the proper car. But I think that Red Bull needs a more friendlier environment so that these younger drivers can thrive. Important to remember, Alex Albon's only in his second season of F1. This is a massive challenge for him. Not everybody is a Verstappen who can jump in the car and win his first race with the team. So I think that Red Bull need to do a better job. Most likely they are going to keep Albon. The options are limited. It doesn't seem like they're going to go outside of the junior program. Nonetheless, it's very interesting to see what's going to happen. But I think that Red Bull need to work together as a team, and they can't just let Alex Albon by himself on the ship and blame all the mistakes on him. Okay, so thanks everybody for your questions. We appreciate them as always. And just to finish off the race preview for today, I just want to get into some of my predictions and thoughts on the race. And I think that in this Sunday's Grand Prix for the 70th Anniversary GP, you can expect a little bit more of a shake-up come Sunday with all the different strategies that are going to be coming into play. Most likely all the teams are going to have to try and go for a two-stop, which should shake things up in the race, make it a little more exciting. We have gotten a safety car at this race for almost 10 years in a row. So you can expect another safety car, which is going to further shake up the strategy. We might see more of a race similar to 2018, where a lot of teams went for a two-stopper in the safety car stops, if you can remember that back to that race. So I think it will be more exciting in that sense. So I think that I'm glad that Pirelli stayed with those tire compounds for this race. I also think that unless problems hit, Mercedes really aren't going to be touchable this weekend. Certainly they weren't last weekend up until the final 5 laps of the race. So I think that unless they come into their own way like they did last Sunday, nobody's going to be challenging them. I don't think Red Bull are close, and nobody else is that close to them either. So expect Mercedes again to run out in front and come away with this. Leclerc and Ferrari, I think they actually could surprise Red Bull and Max Verstappen if they're not on their game. I think Leclerc, you could easily give him the driver of the day last weekend, really surprising up there. Sure, he had some luck with the tire failures for other teams as well, but I think he ran a really good race, and in qualifying they were extremely close, within a tenth to Max Verstappen and Red Bull. So I think Leclerc could surprise us again for this weekend. It'll be key for Racing Point to deliver on their expectations. They really need a good weekend. They didn't get a car out last week. Lance Stroll struggled home to a P9 finish. They really need a good, strong performance at their home circuit. This is another big chance for them. This is a circuit that should suit their car. This is a circuit they should do well at. So hopefully, whether it's Hülkenberg or Perez in the car, they're able to get both cars within the top 5 this weekend because they have the pace to do so, and they need to deliver. It'd be good to see Hülkenberg get a podium if it comes this weekend. That would be nice to see. You should maybe expect the Q2 runners, I think, to be qualifying on the C3 tire. We saw that last weekend, drivers going out on the medium, so you probably should be expecting that again this weekend. And finally, I think Ferrari and Vettel need to compromise on the setup. I don't think Ferrari can just let Vettel struggle so much. This isn't coming down so much to Vettel's driving. Something just isn't right with that car. And you saw the team radio after the race where Vettel didn't even really want to respond to Mattia Binotto. They have to come to a compromise. I think Ferrari needs to step up a little bit here, work with Seb to try and figure out some sort of setup compromise that will allow him to maximize the potential of the car, because he completely wasn't confident in any session. So he'll be probably a driver that's going to be out a lot on Friday free practice to make up for lost time last weekend. Okay, that'll about do it for the 2020 70th Anniversary Grand Prix preview. I hope that I've informed everybody and given you all you need to know for this weekend's race. Now it's your turn. Get in the comments below. Let me know what you think of the upcoming Grand Prix. What are your race predictions? What do you think is going to happen? And any news that I might have missed, drop it in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Now you can also check out our podcast recapping the 2020 British Grand Prix, which is in the link to the description of this video, and all of our other videos you can watch on our homepage of our channel. If you like this video, you like what you see, please give us a subscribe, like this video, share it with your friends. We appreciate all the support, guys. Really means a lot to us. Thank you for joining us. I'll be seeing you after the race to give you all my reactions and all the content to follow. Thanks again, guys. Enjoy the race.